Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go, man. Hunt the ball. Let's go, family on 3. 1, 2, 3, family.
Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films NFL Draft Barbecue. Big board questions. Friend of the show, best friend of the show, BFF, dare I say, the real Jake Vogel. Jake was with me on the game previews where we were digging into scheme and all kinds of stuff. Garnett, Jake, and I really battled it out this season, so it would only be right. Wanted to have Jake on at the end because he's somebody that I can count on. So as we start wrapping up the barbecue, you need a guy to come in late and keep things going and spice things up, Jake. I mean, that's the way it goes, right?
Yeah, you got to keep things spicy around the barbecue.
We have Jake Vogel, college football expert, here with us, a draft guru, et cetera, et cetera. So, Jake, important question right off the bat. Actually, do you have tell the fans what you're working on here?
So we're just talking about a few different players, a list of corners, linebacker that you guys are pretty well versed in from Wisconsin. So we'll get to those guys, and then we're going to hit on one of my Georgia boys as well in the trenches, where the Ravens definitely could use probably two bodies in this draft, and one of them reminds me a whole lot of maybe like a souped up version of Patrick McCary, and that's who we're going to get into first.
Beautiful, bro. Beautiful. So at Real Jake Vogel, follow him and his work. You have any other links to whatever you're working on, Jake, send them to me. They'll all be below. But important question as well. How's my hair, Jake? Got a haircut, got some feedback from the people. They wanted
It looks
to
good, man.
Looking good. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I needed to get better looking. I was looking all shaggy. Hairline is still hanging in there as far as I'm concerned. So as long as I have it, Jake, I'm at the point where I'm going to get it cut, bro, and try to look good. You got to, man. At 45 years old, turning 46, I'm trying to keep it game tight over here, man.
Yeah, man.
So let's hear about Jacob Vogel at the barbecue. Had some really good, dude. We've gone from Canada to Haiti to West Coast. We've been all over with this barbecue, across the pond with James Ogden, hearing about what they do over there. So, but Jake, you are a brewer, a master brewer.
Yep.
So I'm sure, and I know that you cook a little bit. So tell me about your time at the barbecue. What's the vibe like? What's the food like? What's the music like? Give me the whole 9 yards, man. Don't hold back.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of barbecue in general, and I don't know if it's just me or where I'm from. Barbecue and grill outs are two different things. They can, it's kind of like the rectangle and square situation where I think a grill out, you could end up having barbecue at it, but a barbecue in and of itself does not include like burgers and hot dogs. Barbecue is you're talking about ribs, you're talking about brisket, pulled pork, that's barbecue. And all the other stuff is just a grill out.
Okay, so that's cool. So what about music? What are you listening to down in Georgia, man? Give it to me straight.
I listen to all kinds of stuff, man. I have a giant playlist on Spotify that I just threw together, just a huge collection of music. You could, go down the list. I got like Ray Charles in there, and then I got Billy Joel, or I mean, it goes in all these different directions.
Very good, Jake. Very good. So wide variety.
I got more. Yeah, I got more music than that, but I was thrown off with the music question.
That's okay. Yeah. So Jake, I gather from the Billy Joel and the Ray Charles, an old soul, which I would have pictured in you. You know what I mean? I picture that about Jake. You're a man wise beyond your years.
Definitely an old soul. Yep.
Uptown Girl. Is that on the playlist?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
Frank Sinatra, Stevie Wonder. I mean, you go down the list. Sam Cooke. It's not all music in that sort of genre, but I do like some of that older stuff for sure.
Nice, man. Yeah. I'm more of like the hippie type with my old music, the Doors, Jimi Hendrix, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like classic rock. Yep.
But I do like older stuff, and I have a friend who's a very talented musician, and he listens to all kinds of stuff I've never heard of. So I do like to get like classical music can really inspire your brain, man. Like, I think that's important. I think there's like child development studies on that kind of stuff and everything. And so I had a friend in college who did a study, and they had three plants. It was three. She had three plants. They were each isolated in a booth. The one plant was in silent. That was the control group. The one plant was listening to classical music, and the other one was listening to Billy Idol, White Wedding, for 24 hours a day straight. So no lie, unless she was lying to me, the Billy Idol plant died. It died. Same food, same water, but White Wedding 24/7 apparently is not good for your plant's health, if you can believe that.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, funny story. So you reminded me of it. So Jake, give you time to brag, bro. I went back, of course, I had to listen to your BS all year about your Georgia team. And then, of course, I get into the draft and I see what you mean, man. I could see what you were talking about. So congratulations on that, having that team and being able to watch that team. It must have been a lot of fun. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about one of these guys. Now, we've talked a lot about the guys that you see in the first round, but there's a guy that I have number 63 on my list. I think the world of him. I think he can help us now. I think he can help us in the future. That's Jamari Sawyer. So give me your opinion on him. And what I would like you to touch on, please, is how would he fit in this Ravens offense this year? And do you see him as somebody that could help out at the tackle position if Ronnie's not healthy?
Yeah. So I referenced him earlier as like a souped up version of Patrick McCary, and I really think that's what he is. So he literally moved around Georgia's offensive line throughout his career, played all 5 spots. Yes, he did play some center. I don't think he ever got a start there, but he did, have some snaps at center. And I think the NFL would like to project him as a guard. And I think that's probably where his home will be. However, like McCary, I think he has the skill set to kick out at tackle whenever you want him to be in that situation. He's a little bit shorter than your average tackle, but he has pretty good arm length, which helps. So he has like a little leverage thing going on. And he played primarily left tackle in 2021. This is a guy that, in the SEC played against really good competition and certainly held his own. I think, the bar was set so low. We were talking about the Ravens games every single week. And we had Alejandro Villanueva out there at the end of his career. I think Jamari Sawyer in his rookie year is at least to the level of AV. I would venture to say he's a better, starter at left tackle in a pinch than what Alejandro was last year. So you're getting something, better than that. And I think you're getting really solid guard play and perhaps a future center down the road. We know that the Ravens like to take guys that aren't traditionally centers and develop them. You look at Ryan Jensen, he was a tackle in college and, he became a really darn good center who just got paid like it again. So I would love to see him in a Ravens uniform.
So you would say to me, probably, Jason, don't worry about the fit. This guy is an upgrade in our line. Whether we decide to use him at center and, with McCary, maybe ease him into the center position, or he may be like, I'm thinking he may be our best left guard from the start. Mm-hmm. No offense to Ben Cleveland or Tyree Phillips. I think both of them are starters, but at that position, capable of doing well. But Sawyer, I have him as a higher rated prospect than I did either one of those two. There's a rookie learning curve. And then, of course, Jake, Kevin Zeitler, maybe his last year. So you're looking for a guard somewhere in this draft. If I'm going to spend a pick that early, if I'm staying true to my board, I kind of want somebody that's going to back up Ronnie in there somewhere. It's one of the reasons like Cole was on here and he's like, I grab Rasheed Walker every time in the 3rd round. I'm like, me too, Cole. Like, that's kind of my guy. Like, that's the guy you want to work in. So a lot of great information. Like, what kind of player is Sawyer as far as his feet? You mentioned his length. He's a big guy. Like, he's strong. I can see that. But dig in for me, something I might not have seen in the 3+ games I saw of him where I was focusing in on him. I watched like every friggin' Georgia game I could this year because they were all over the place. That man, 88, I'd like to draft him this year. But
Yeah.
but yeah, dig into more specifically like what you saw over the years as his feet. Like, does he have the feet of a tackle? Does he have the feet of like a guard? Like where do you fall on all of that? You mentioned his best position is probably guard, but I want to
Mhm.
focus in on the tackle part.
Yeah. I think he has adequate feet for a tackle, but I mean, just the projection. Most teams are going to want him at guard because of the size. He just looks like a guard at the next level. I don't have issue with him playing tackle for multiple games in a season. I just don't think he's going to be your plug and play right tackle for several seasons.
Gotcha.
I think he can play left or right, and he's a valuable player, in that. Now, for the Ravens specifically, it's one of those weird positions because if you go through all of the spots that you'd like to see a pick made for the Ravens by position, you would say offensive tackle, ideally a left tackle guy that, can maybe also give you some skill at guard. And then you talk about an interior guy that's maybe more primarily a center in this draft. That's how I'm viewing it. So Sawyer does not fit that, but at the same time, he's such a good player that he can help you out in a pinch in like any spot. And he's like a plus version of McCary, which you can't have enough of those guys on your roster. And I think he would be able to find a home as a starter in this league. So I'm all for him. Like if the Ravens get to trade back any and they're picking later than 45, at the end of the second round, I think that's a good spot for him. Or with their first third round pick, if Sawyer slides a little bit, I think that's the perfect spot for him because he may not look like that perfect left tackle that can play guard or center that can just help out.
Yeah.
But
And
he's just a good player.
Jake, I think I've given him plenty of respect on my list. I'm going to pull up my big board right now for those of you watching. I mean, I have Sawyer 3 spots below Rasheed Walker. I have Walker at 60. I have Falalele at 61. The freak corner Woolen at 62. And then Sawyer, ahead of guys like Spiller, Chanel, Dulcich, Sam Williams, and Paschal. You've heard me express my love for Sam Williams a lot on this show. So, yes, Jake, I'm thinking third round, pick 76. You know how guards are valued. They're not so much, you know what I mean? I think pick 76 would be a reasonable spot, depending on how teams view him. If they view him as a guard only, and more teams view him as a guard only than not, then there's a shot, I think, at pick 76 that he could slide down. Of course, my board doesn't have any quarterbacks on it. Of course, my board is Ravens-centric, so a lot of these zone teams will probably like somebody else maybe better than a big guy like Sawyer. So I think it's very possible that in the third round, you get a piece for your offensive line, a dependable player. And Jake, last comment on Sawyer, we'll keep it quick, but playing all those positions and the versatility tells me he's got a pretty good football brain. So I don't see him as like he looked very clean when I watched him as well. Not a lot of penalties, not a lot of goofball stuff, not some missed assignments. Like he looked really comfortable and polished in the SEC. So yeah, real quickly before we move on to the next guy, can you comment on that part of him, part of his game?
Yeah, I definitely think he was a leader in their offensive line room. It takes a special player to move around the whole line. If there's an injury, if there's something not working out for a particular matchup, like he was a guy that they were like, all right, Sawyer, we need you to move over to right guard. We need you
There you go.
we need you to move over to right tackle because this guy's, having fits against this player. So I just think that's a special quality, and he would be a welcomed addition in Baltimore.
Good, dude. That's a kind of my guy. By the way, I see the same thing with John Paschal on the defensive line. One of the
Yeah.
qualities I like. I don't think he was maximized at Kentucky because they moved around and was like just what you're saying with Sawyer. We need you here. We need you there. Do this, do that. So I love those kind of guys, glue guys, and that can really help you when you're talking about saving a roster spot, banged up roster, get you through a couple of games at a position that he's not really familiar with, but allow you not to mess up your whole line and move everybody around. Love guys like that. So, Jake, you're throwing me a little bit of a curveball here with Mr. Monteric Brown, a cornerback out of Arkansas. Again, another SEC guy. I mean, big school.
Right.
So 6 foot, 196, 4.55. And that's about all I know about him. Like, he didn't come across. I bragged about the number of players I've watched on this show before, so I'm not going to go into it. But out of all those players, man, Monteric Brown did not come across my radar. So, Jake, I'm relying on you for this one, man. Go ahead, take the floor.
Yeah, so I recently dove into his film and liked a lot about him. However, I don't see him as a day one or day two player. So I thought that was a perfect guy for this list and this particular episode. He plays a ton of off coverage at Arkansas. You will occasionally see him in press, but primarily it's off coverage. They play some zone, and
Doesn't everybody
Yeah.
play zone nowadays? It's like,
yeah, they do. He has really good ball skills. Maybe not at the top of the class, but really good. I noticed whenever he was in phase with the receiver that got the target, if he was right there, he was making a play on the ball. That might not always be an interception, but he was getting a deflection and preventing the receiver from coming down with the football. And that's a special quality. The issues with this game were sometimes he could get beat with double move. He'd bite on that first, curl comeback kind of fake, and then he would just get roasted on the deep ball. So he has athleticism to stay with receivers at times, but also can get lost. And that kind of shows up in the 4.55 testing, which is, adequate for a corner of his size, but it's not elite. And I think you're going to see that at the next level. So because of his testing not being excellent, and then that also being obvious on film, he's kind of in that round 4 to round 6 area, in my opinion. I like the player. I think he would be a really good corner 4 for the Ravens.
okay, so maybe I'm thinking out loud here. Maybe he bites and jumps because he does have those ball skills. Because when I'm looking at his report right here, the ball, like you're saying, the report I'm reading right here has the same thing: ball skills, nose for the ball, that kind of thing. So a lot of times those guys, for lack of a better word, get greedy. They want to get their hand on the ball. They want to make a play, and they can be susceptible to double moves. There's corners like that all over the league. The thing that I'm also looking at right here is he may struggle with quicker, shiftier receivers. So it's not only a long speed thing with him at 4.55. Like you said, 4.55 is not a disqualifier. I mean, there are plenty of slot corners that run a 4.55. But looking at his fit for this team, he would probably need to be, well, if he's going to be a day one starter, it would be in the slot. Where do you see him as a fit? Like, can he handle the slot? Because he's probably going to struggle with speed on the outside. So if him in the slot versus, say, I don't know, let's say Jarvis Landry is still on the Browns, or Juju Smith-Schuster's still on the Steelers, that kind of thing. Can he hang with these kind of guys, or like what's going to give him problems?
I think it's a little bit of a projection because I didn't see him play in the slot much.
Okay.
I definitely think he can stay in phase with receivers like that. So I watched the Alabama game from 2021. He was lined up across from Jamison Williams most of the game. He did play pretty well. However, he also got beat for a couple touchdowns in the game. Not just from Jamison Williams. There was a rub route in there where his own teammate banged into him, and that created the separation for John Mechie on one touchdown in the right part of the end zone for Alabama. And then there was another deep ball to Jamison Williams down the field, and Brown is literally like almost stride for stride with him. And granted, he starts with a cushion. This guy plays a ton of off coverage, like I said, so it's not like he's running the same distance, but
Right.
he's there. And then I don't know if he trips on something, but he falls down kind of at the feet, and Williams catches it and runs into the end zone. So he can be beaten by really fast players, but that's kind of an extreme example. Jamison Williams is one of the fastest players in this entire draft. So Jarvis Landry, as an example, in the slot that he would have to cover, is not the fastest guy in the world. So I would be pretty comfortable with it given some time in the league.
Okay, very, very good. So a guy, just when I think my homework's done, Cole brought up Ben Brown. Now I have Monteric Brown to go and put eyes on. If one of my guys do that, you got to do that, Jake. If a guy like Jake brings up a guy for you, go back and do yourself a favor and watch a couple of cut-ups of them. It doesn't take long to really scout. I mean, you can go through slow motion, all 22, and really dig in if you want to. But it doesn't take long to find a cut up, even on YouTube, of some game replay if you don't have time, and just get a feel for this guy snap after snap. Try to identify him. But what I would tell people out there who are trying to get into it and just have YouTube, find out like how he's wearing his socks, or how he's wearing his arm, or if he has hair sticking out, or some kind of quality that separates him. Hopefully you get that. If maybe he's lining up at one particular spot on the field, focus in on him, see how he does snap after snap. And you can watch those cut-ups, Jake, 8 to 10 minutes and get a feel for them. So if anybody that's starting out there who wants to take a look at the players, use YouTube as a resource. I mean, it's not the best, it's not coach's film, but you can get a feel for players if you're natural at it. So, Jake, a cornerback that's higher on list, he's on my list, he's a target for me in these mid-rounds, is Cincinnati corner Kobe Bryant. Now, I have Bryant around a lot of good players on my list. Right there, fellas, in the near the top of the blue section, number 73 on my list, Kobe Bryant. Talk about the players around him like Alec Pierce. I have Mechie one spot below him, Tyndall, Muma. He's in there with some good players. I'm kind of high on the kid. I think that he got tested. I'll say my piece first. He got tested a lot because Sauce Gardner was on the other side. So Kobe Bryant saw his amount of targets his way. And I was impressed the way he handled himself, especially as Cincinnati advanced and started playing better and better teams. Looks like he belongs to me, Jake. He would be a guy that I would eat up in that like pick 100 range, would be about perfect. We have pick 100. Maybe 76 is going to be a little bit too rich. I'll probably have other players higher at that point. But when you start getting into the fourth round specifically, that's where I'd be looking at Kobe Bryant as just like a really solid ad for the team, especially if we miss out on cornerbacks early. By the way, Garnett, our friend, calls him Kobe Baked Beans Bryant because he's good with or without the sauce. What do you expect from our friend Garnett? He brought it hardcore. He had food references for everybody. So Baked Beans was this Kobe Bryant reference.
I thought it would have been funnier if he said he's no brakes, all gas.
Oh man, okay, gotcha, bro. Very nice, very nice. I like that kind of, I like that kind of humor. I'm gonna stop myself from making any more jokes because I'm gonna take it to a new level that wouldn't be.
Yeah.
But yeah, talk to me about Kobe Bryant. If you could speak first about where I'm, what I said about where I would like to get him, that would be cool. And then give me your scouting report and how you would fit here.
Yeah, so I agree 100% where you have him. I also have him as a fourth round player. I see shades of Anthony Averett in his game. I really do. I think the way he plays tight coverage, just like the way he moves as a player, reminds me of Anthony. And we saw, whatever you think of Averett, we saw him develop and play really well in spots. And I think if you can get that out of a fourth round corner, I mean, that's good for your team. He's going to bring value on special teams. He's a good tackler. He has ball skills, which we desperately need in the secondary. And he's been tested. And that sometimes is a good thing and also a bad thing. But I think that bodes well because when you're a young corner in the league, quarterbacks are going to test you regardless of if you're a first round corner or if you're a sixth round corner, you're going to get tested. And he's experienced a lot. And he's been put through the fire. And I think he's going to come out on the other end as a really decent player. So I would be all in on him for the Ravens. A similar situation like a CB4 that can be more than that if there are injuries, but I really like that kind of role.
And just to be clear, maybe to check myself or whatever, even if we get a corner early, I mean, corner is a spot where we pretty much need two. We lost Tavon, we lost Averett, we lost Westry. There's not a lot of depth there. We have Kayvon Seymour there still. Ardarius Washington maybe in the slot. So, I mean, we actually in a point to need bodies, and you just don't want to add bodies at cornerback. You need players that can play, like you said, like an Averett who can step in and finish a season for you. And although he's going to be tested, he's going to give up some losses. He's going to take some losses. He's also going to win and provide you good coverage. And, for me, Jake, when I look at players, a lot of these top corners, it's hard to see them get challenged. They're just not getting challenged because they're future pros and there are other players on the team, other places to go on the field. So I love the fact that with Kobe Bryant, we got to see him get challenged. We got to see him tackle. And I feel like out of all the corners in this draft, I have a really good feel for him compared to the others. So I feel like with Bryant, it doesn't matter if you quote unquote, put him in the slot. I think there's a role for him. I think there's people that he can cover this year in the NFL and do a better than good job. And then there are also going to be receivers in the NFL that he'll struggle with, but still have his wins. Like, would you say like first year Anthony Averett would be a good performance comparison, not just like physically, but performance wise? Could you expect a first or second year Anthony Averett out of Mr. Bryant?
Yeah, I think so for sure. Maybe even second year. I'm not sure if he's further along in his development, but just with the recency bias, I kind of feel like Kobe might be just slightly further than where Anthony was in his first year. I don't know.
Yeah, because Anthony has that track speed, and he still has it. So
that's true.
Anthony had that like where Bryant seems to have had to work harder to get where he is in this draft. Averett was just blessed with speed. Still is. You throw him on Mecole Hardman, your Hardman, your guy from Georgia, and Anthony Averett can keep up with him. Bryant is not that speed blessed. He's more technically sound. And I think, like I said, there are going to be receivers that you can match him up on and feel pretty comfortable. Of course, there's still test him because he'd be in the lineup with Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, theoretically. But I really like him as a mid-round guy. He's been brought up a couple of times, so he's gaining some steam here at the barbecue. Marcus Jones is another guy that people can't stop talking about at the barbecue. So, some corners there in the mid-rounds for the Ravens to target. It's a pretty good group of corners, I would say, overall. You have your high-end guys, you have your middle-round guys, or second and third-round guys, day two guys. And then, when you look at Bryant or whoever else is going to be left over from this corner group on day three, Cam Taylor-Britt, Jalen Armour-Davis, Emerson, there's some good proven corners in this draft. So I do expect the Ravens to address it multiple times, or at least I would say two corners. That would be the position I see us doubling up on. Comments on that before we move on? Do you think the Ravens will draft? Like, if I gave you an over-under of 1.5 corners, are you taking the over?
I'm mashing the over.
Me too.
Smashing it, mashing it, putting it in a stew.
Yeah, I don't say smash the like button, Jake. I
Yeah.
don't say that, man. I see it on YouTube everywhere. I'm like, man, maybe I should do that. And then I think it's overused. So I'll do it right here. Hey, fellas, smash the like button out there. Smash that like button. Like, subscribe, share. Like, I'm not a good promotional guy, man. I'm not a good promotional guy. So, hey, we have another corner on here and another Georgia guy that I really need to get your opinion on him because I'm getting mixed signals here, Jake. On Darian. I'm getting mixed signals on Darian Kendrick. The testing, I don't put a ton into testing. It just kind of flags me. And, it's just like any other piece of information. The testing is useful, just like the Senior Bowl is useful, just like the field drills are useful, just as a game against a small school is useful, just again, you take it all together in the process. So Darian Kendrick, the talent is there. Testing wasn't good, but I'm going to be quiet here and let you take it away because obviously as a Georgia guy, you can tell me more about his game. So please elaborate, man. Go on in depth as in depth as you can.
Yeah. So I agree with his evaluation. He is a talented player, highly recruited, was with Clemson, then transferred to Georgia. Has been a starter for years, multiple years at the college level. in tough competition. Granted, ACC is not great, but Clemson was pretty good when he was still there. And then obviously the SEC is a different animal, in my opinion, at least. So I think he's getting a really bad rap because of the testing. However, he does not have elite physical tools on display when you watch his game in the first place. So the thing that does get me excited about Darian Kendrick are his ball skills. He has a knack for the football. Definitely has, some of the better hands, or maybe just, one of the stronger noses for the ball that I've seen in this class. And that is a reason why I would be in on taking him with a 6th round pick if we still needed to get our second corner, or if we wanted to triple dip and just go, I mean, I think it's better than a Ben Mason pick because at least it's a corner. So I'd be in on it for that reason. His special teams ability is going to be solid, but maybe not the best. You could go for a more athletic corner that can get down the field faster. Maybe bring a little bit more physicality. I think he's very solid in the run game, but not an Andrew Booth, not a Trent McDuffie, not like a physical, I'm going to go hit you really hard type of corner in that area of his game. It's not bad. It's not at the lowest of the class, and it's not at the peak. And you can kind of go around all aspects of his game and say that. So he's kind of a well-rounded but late round corner.
Yes, and when I scout guys like this, you have to take every part of their game into account. So, Jake, from us talking all the time, like if your only NFL skill is speed, that's next to nothing. That's not going to translate to the NFL because there are other fast guys. You need to do other things. So with a guy like Kendrick, who can do a little bit of everything, borderline NFL level, I mean, that's why you're going to have him probably in the 5th, 6th round of this draft, because it could go either way. Either he does enough things well enough to contribute to your team, or he doesn't do enough things at a level and gets exposed. I wanted to ask you about his fit. Could he be a possible, dime back safety? Maybe dime back's the wrong word because you don't want to put him in the box probably, but could he contribute in dime packages, or maybe be an off guy to negate some of his speed and take advantage of those ball skills that you were talking about?
I definitely think he can play off coverage well. He hasn't been destroyed in games. Like, I'm pretty sure he's one of the better corners in coverage grades given out from PFF this past year. So he seems to be a really smart player, which is why I think he would be able to do some of what you're talking about, maybe play some safety or some sort of dime role where he's maybe off ball a little bit more in off coverage, and in using those natural instincts and ball skills to create turnovers, because his physical limitations are going to be, magnified against really fast, athletic, twitchy wide receivers. But his football smarts and, positioning on the field can kind of mitigate some of those risks.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, if he has a nose for the ball, you put him out there with 6 other DBs or whatever, it's not like he's covering a ton of ground. He's going to have help everywhere. Yeah. So I could see him in a move to like a positionless type guy. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you call him a safety if you want, you call him a cornerback you want, but he's just a guy that you stick in heavy DB packages and can take an area or a particular receiver, whatever it may be. I mean, not all NFL receivers are athletic freaks either, Jake. You got guys in the league that have been in the league for 10 years that ran a 4.6 when they came out. They're probably running 4.7, 4.8 at this time. So it's not like Kendrick would get overwhelmed by every player. I think you could hide some of that, but yes, special teams are going to be very important for him, I would think, Jake. The closer you get to the kicker inside, like outside, you have your speed guys,
right?
But the closer you get to the kicker, that's where you have your boards and your Welches and your your inside linebackers, your extra linebackers. So if he can be physical enough to find him a spot maybe closer to the kicker than he would be on the boundary, I mean, then that's a guy you can use. Say, all right, well, if we have a couple of injuries, we can play him in this package. Or if we have an in-game injury, maybe he plays in X package and Y package, and he'll help us on special teams every down. So hopefully he finds a place into the league. I did see a competitor when I watched him, obviously playing in high-level games, and ball skills always come in handy. So Gary Kendrick, go ahead.
He had 2 interceptions in a high-profile game that a lot of even Ravens fans would have watched. That was the Georgia-Michigan playoff game. He had one earlier in the game and then had one near the end. And neither of the plays were like highlight reel grabs, I would say. The first one, he was a little bit physical with the route and kind of went out and got the ball, heading in the same direction that the receiver would be going in, and then turned around and ended up getting tackled for a loss on the interception return. But I mean, it still was, held on the field as an interception. That's a game-changing play. And then he had one in the back left corner of the end zone as well in that game. And he shows ball skills not just in the big moments of a Michigan game, but throughout the season. And that's something that the Ravens severely missed this past year. And are they going to get a 6th round corner on the field? Probably not if things go well. But this past year, we were struggling at corner, and I think Kendrick definitely has the skills to beat out some of the bottom tier corners we currently have filling out our depth chart.
Yeah, well said. And I gave you the eyes on that one, because chances are, if a corner's on our roster, he's going to play at some point, man. It's just you've been a Ravens fan for long enough, man.
Yeah.
You know how that goes. So good, great info on Darian Kendrick. There's something to be said about just being a good ball player. It's overused, but if you're running like he ran, if this speed is indicative of his actual game speed, I didn't see a blazer out there either. I'm worried about his speed, and then saw the poor testing and was like, oh, that stinks. But there's something to be said about a good ball player. Hopefully the game doesn't move too fast for him at the NFL level, and he can be a contributor and make himself a pretty good living. I mean, it's there for him if he can, and who knows, maybe he has some upside in his explosiveness. You get him, in weight training and work on quick twitch training and that kind of thing. Maybe it's something mechanical, like you see Kadri Ismail talk about all the time, how these guys are running slower than they should because they're not doing it correctly, and all that other stuff that's way above my head. So maybe he gets a little faster too. So, Jake, we're doing really well. There's one other player that you wanted to talk about. I believe you teased him in the beginning. So go ahead and take it away, sir. This guy has been pretty popular. He's come up a few times at the barbecue, man. You might have heard other people talking about him.
Yeah.
So who is he? Where does he fit? What do you think of him?
Yeah, so it's Leo Chenal out of Wisconsin. He's a linebacker. Primarily a Mike linebacker is how I would see him. And he's a physical freak. He's one of those guys that the Ravens would definitely be in on. We just saw them draft Odafe Owe, at 31 overall last year. In large part due to his athleticism and upside. And I think different player, different position, but you're getting some of that with Chenal. He is what we want Malik Harrison to be. And who knows if everything's going to translate for either of those players at the next level. Harrison's already been in the league. He had his own issues this past year, some things that were probably out of his control to some extent. But the idea of the player is similar. We wanted a thumper, a hard-hitting, athletic linebacker, and I think Chenal just takes that to the next level based on everything I've seen from him out of Wisconsin. A lot of people like to reference his game against Iowa because who did he go against a ton in the second half? No one other than Tyler Linderbaum, the center.
And they had the speed back Goodson too. So he wasn't chasing some chump. He was chasing a 4-3 guy. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, but I mean, he has the strength to, beat up on the center a little bit and prevent Linderbaum from getting to the second level in that heavy zone running concept that they have in Iowa. So I think that is a valuable player. He definitely fits a defense regardless, but maybe even more so if the Ravens don't invest in the interior defensive line early, you can get a stronger Mike linebacker to really stack and really shed those offensive linemen, move them to the side, and get into the backfield. He's a heck of a blitzer too. But in terms of bringing down the running back and not really worrying about his defensive linemen creating lanes because he has the strength to do that for himself, that's appealing. But there's a number of ways to skin a cat, and I think he's up there.
Yeah, and we talked about his explosiveness a lot on this show and his straight line speed. I mean, it's obvious, and then he has those wow hits where he just brings the stadium to their feet. Energy giver in that aspect. And I mean, when you talk about block shedding, he sheds blocks like Malik. I mean, Malik, for all the issues Malik has had or the issues he had last year, one thing you can count on with Malik is if there's a physical car crash with him in a guard or a center, Malik is even Quentin Nelson we saw in the Colts game. Like, my goodness, man, Malik is an absolute force when he really wants to unload on you. And we've seen it in the special teams and all this other stuff. So Chanel has got that straight line explosion, energy giver. And then I think something that's underrated in his game, something that Ken McCusick actually noticed when I did the linebacker show with him, and something I went back and watched another game and paid attention to because I think he's right, is the way he leverages people, the way he's able to use his teammates and understand what's going on in slow motion almost and position himself to where he knows he's not the quickest guy. So he's going to use, like you say, the sidelines never missed a tackle. He'll use his he'll use his teammates in the pile over here as a never missed a tackle type of thing, like you would the sideline, and just unload on people. His angles are really good in the run game. So it's not just this big, monster that's going to destroy everything in his path. He's also seems like he's got a real instinct for how to play the Mike linebacker position. And let's face it, Jake, instincts at linebacker are the reason that Josh Bynes has been on this team, 3 out of 4 years or whatever it is now, right? Because we just haven't had that kind of quality. So would you agree with that? And also the big question everybody's been talking about at the barbecue, when you cross his face and get quick on him, he's often left grasping for air. So talk about his IQ, but then talk about how much of a projection his coverage is.
Yeah, so I think he is a smart player. He's going to struggle a little bit in coverage, even though he has the physical tools to get better in that area. I think he's very much see ball, get ball type player right now. I think teams would better utilize him blitzing the A gap or B gap on third downs if they want to have him on the field for 3 downs. And I think he can certainly improve in coverage, but it's just not natural yet. And that's the difference between some of these linebackers in the class. Like Leo Chenal is up there near the top of these guys, but the big difference is he's the physical Mike linebacker, and he's gonna thump and create havoc in the backfield. But he's not going to be the guy that knows what's going on behind him in coverage and zone coverage. Or, I mean, in man-to-man, he can be decent, like with a tight end or something, but he's just not going to be your best coverage linebacker on the field. So you have to take the pros with the cons and figure out what you want to do with them.
Okay, see, I haven't given – well, I haven't given up on anybody. Given up is a strong term, but, I mean, we'd see with Bynes, he ran a 4.7 or whatever it is 12 years ago, and he was still our best coverage linebacker because of his instincts and feel for routes. So Did you see when you saw Chanel in zone coverage? Did you see some natural ability to read what's going on around him? Because you don't have to be the quickest guy to be okay and to be a 3-down linebacker. You just have to have a feel for the routes and get in those passing lanes.
Yeah, so I have a number of positive notes in the game against Purdue from this year. He played against their tight end, number 87, I want to say. Yeah, he played him pretty well. He was physical at the line, knocked him off his route a number of times. Um, and I mean, I think he can, stay in stride and tackle those guys in the middle of the field. There are some times where you think he has the leverage or positioning in the middle. If it's a zone concept and he's there, like waiting for the guy, and he just doesn't react quick enough. And I think that's where he needs to improve in his coverage, especially zone coverage.
Okay, so it is hurting him a little bit, just a little, because he's not recognizing it super early. To negate any kind of quickness issues, you need to recognize it early, not when you're supposed to. So, okay, so still some room to grow. Probably not a guy that you, in Jacob's opinion, that you would be able to rely on in coverage for the first year or so, and just have to see how he develops. So I have a second round grade on him just because of how awesome he is and how easy that is to project in run defense. Somebody you can have on the field in regular down and distance. Surround him with other coverage players, like you said, blitz him. I mean, he will be a useful player for you. So, Jake, final thoughts time here as we start to wrap up the show. It doesn't have to be anything to do with the players. Overall draft strategy. I remember you were talking to me a little bit about the top of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Give me your Ravens fan perspective on how the Ravens should attack this draft, or just go wherever you want, as we sit here less than a week away from draft day.
Yeah, so I think there are lots of areas of needs on this roster, and that is both a pro and a con for the Ravens. It's a pro because other teams should not have a feel for where they are picking, because they can literally take the best player available, almost at any spot. Um, so that's a positive. If you're a team that just has one or two glaring needs, then other teams behind you and ahead of you will know what you're targeting, and that can really hurt you, and you might end up reaching on a player. So that's like kind of one of the first takeaways I have, going into this draft. The Ravens could go in a ton of different directions at 14, and then if they trade back, it opens up even more, in my opinion, and throughout the draft. So corner, we talked about a couple of those guys. I think is a spot they're going to draft at least two. I could really see them taking three, but it just depends on if they move some capital to go get a guy. They might not end up with 10 picks, and then that's really going to decrease the odds of taking three corners. But but definitely two seems very likely. I would probably put money on that. Edge is one of the hottest positions in the Ravens flock community. That's what everybody wants to talk about. Edge.
And they're plentiful in this draft, man.
Yeah, they are. It's a big, deep group. I definitely think the Ravens should address it with one or two picks. I'm not as dead set on two because I do think they already have two starters. The problem is Bowser's coming off injury. I think Owe is going to be fine. I know he's also coming off an injury, but
yeah, he's fine.
Yeah, he's fine in my opinion. And then they have Dalen Hayes. So they got three. Jalen Ferguson's probably going to be on the roster this year. I thought they might cut him if they draft a couple edges, but right now I feel like he's probably safe for his final year in Baltimore, and they'll just kind of carry that depth as long as Bowser's banged up and stuff like that. So I don't think they need to take two, but I would be open, especially it depends on the kind of guy they take early.
Yes.
If it's you get the speed rusher, then maybe you come back with somebody with a little more power that can kind of kick inside, like a Pascal or that Zadarius Smith, Pernell McPhee type role.
Ton of those guys, Jake. Ton of those
Yeah.
guys. And I cheated on my show with Ken, the defensive line show, and I included these power edges who, they're not Bowser and they're not Judon. It's just, they're handing the dirt, go get after the passer. So yeah, I agree. If you get a speed guy or you get a cover guy, then maybe you're looking for like one of these hybrid D lineman edges. Very important part of the draft. Agree with you on Ferguson as well. I think he will be on the team until final cuts are made. And then that's when you get to decide, okay, we're healthy. Everybody's good. We only have 1 year left of Ferguson, so we'd rather keep this guy over here who we have 4 years of, that kind of thing. Unless the Ravens get in a real pinch for salary. And I don't even think, I don't have the numbers up here, but I think it maybe saves us like $1 million or something.
Yeah, it's just under $1 million for him.
Right. So a cut that you would use for in-season moves, you're not going to cut Ferguson and be able to make a big move because of it. So,
right.
So yeah, so there we go. Back on the show. Long time coming, man. Long time coming. When I saw Garnett pop up on the screen before we started recording, I got like this big warm, he had the big grin and started making jokes. And same thing with Jake, man. Like we went through it last year, bro, and you hung with me the whole time. Man, I appreciate that. And something that I'll never forget. We had some good times and we made some good calls, man.
We certainly did.
Yeah, man. Guys, like all this stuff that they're talking about, we needed to do, and why we didn't. I mean, if you watched the show, you would have already known that weeks ago, bro.
True.
Get a little cocky every once in a while, Jake. It's part of my thing over here. My natural personality. Like I'm a humble person. I don't take myself very seriously at all, but it don't hurt to toot your own horn every once in a while. So yeah, Jake and Garnett helped me a lot with the homework, and we all, Jake was there often mediating the mature one in the room as Garnett and I would go off script. So, we appreciate that anchor there, Jake, the brewer, the barbecue. There is a difference between barbecuing and cookouts. Every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square. That is Jake's comp. Great player comp there for barbecue and cookout. So when you're doing a barbecue down in Georgia, it's the big boys, bro. We ain't talking burgers and hot dogs. We're talking about we're taking it to another level there in Georgia. So thanks, Jake. I appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, Jason.
All right. So with that, we will say goodbye to our football family. Love our football family. Jake, you know what to do, bro. Say goodbye to the people.
See you guys.